Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time you're watching this. My name is Chris Elliott of the Elliott team at Remax Action. Wanted to come at you today, as we do always, giving you a market update for the week. So since COVID-19 started, we've been doing weekly updates. This week is no different. We are time stamping this April the 20th at approximately 2:15 p.m. So hopefully the world hasn't changed for the worse by the time you're seeing this, but we do feel the need to time date all this information now with the world changing as much as it is. So let's just jump right into it. So the big headline this past week is unemployment. So unemployment claims, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, jumped up to 22 million folks. There's about 22 million folks are out of work right now, possibly even more. And certainly that's a big number, and our hearts go out to anybody that's being affected by this, health-wise or economically. And this is just kind of a breakdown of the unemployment week by week. So that's a big headline. Here are the statistics as far as how bad that some major firms are projecting we'll get. Once again, Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, these are all huge financial firms that have a very, very large stake in getting it right. They manage, I think, $1.7 trillion of some of the wealthiest folks in the country and in the world's money. So they've got a lot of effort and a lot of reasoning in getting this right. So this is their projection. Obviously, Goldman Sachs is the ugliest at 15% unemployment. And then it goes down from there, Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo. So here's the silver lining, and that's kind of what we're always looking for in these stories, is not just the fear mongering that you're seeing in the news media, but also give you the silver lining behind these. The silver lining to this big one is that we're seeing more depth of unemployment, but it's projected that we're going to see less length of unemployment. And I would argue that length of unemployment is really what affects us as a whole more than depth itself. So if we take the worst projection of Goldman Sachs, which is 15% unemployment, and we compare that against both the Great Recession and the Great Depression, if you look at the graph here, which I think it does a pretty good job, basically this shows you how long it took after all of these events to recover to the level of employment that we saw going into the pandemic or going into the recession or depression. So COVID-19, this is going to cut pretty deep at 15% unemployment, but it is projected that we'll get pretty next to near the level of employment that we were seeing before this pandemic within about 2 years. So obviously, if you're being affected by this, this may not be all that comforting, but as a whole, as a country, as a nation, this is very good. Whereas, for example, during the Great Recession, it took about 10 years to get back to that level of unemployment or level of employment, I should say. And then in the Great Recession, obviously this dropped down to almost 25%, and it took 12 years to recover. So once again, we've been talking about it before, but this is projected to be very much a V-type recession as opposed to a U-shape or even an L-shape like we saw in the Great Recession. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, once again, three top financial firms that have a lot at stake at getting these numbers right. They all project that it's going to be a crazy, buckle your seatbelts and keep your hands inside the vehicle ride down in the second quarter of 2020, but that we're going to bounce up pretty robustly towards the end of this year. So very, very good news. We can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is a good thing, at least economically. Once again, feel the need to, and if you've been watching our stuff, we've been using and abusing this slide, but we feel the need to reiterate that a recession a financial recession does not necessarily equal a housing crisis. So I think as a country, we all kind of have PTSD from 2008, just because home prices took a very big whack of about 20% during that time. But we've got to keep in mind that recession, the Great Recession of 2008, it was the housing industry that led us into that recession. So subprime mortgages and houses being overbuilt and all that nonsense is what got us into that mess. In other recessions, we have not seen depreciation. We've actually seen appreciation. In only one other recession in the last 5 recessions have home prices dropped, which was in 1991, and home prices only dropped about 2%. So whether you're buying a home or whether you just own a home, rest assured that it is not projected that your home value is going to decrease, which I think is a very good thing. I think we all need things in our lives right now, to positive things to be able to hold on to. So Ivy Zellman, who puts out the Z Report, one of the most respected economists when it comes to the residential real estate market, revised recently her appreciation projections for the years 2020 through 2022. As you can see, her original pre-COVID-19 projection was 4.7% appreciation. She's now reduced that down to 3%. And then you can kind of see from there. But the good news is that we are still projected to see home appreciation of 3% across the country. And of course, this is all national in 2020, which is very good news that not only are we not losing ground, but that we're going to continue to gain ground, at least when it comes to the value of residential real estate. So that is really good. And I can echo that we are at least seeing that in the current moment on the front lines here in the greater Richmond area. We are not seeing sellers having to cut the prices of their homes to get sold. The only homes that have really had to make price reductions are those that would have more than likely had to make price reductions whether or not COVID came along. So in any market you see price reductions, but in any market you see homes being overpriced and things of that nature. So I say that because I've had some people say, well, my neighbor had to cut the price of their home. You know, if we dive a little bit deeper into it, they may have already had to cut the price of their home, whether or not a pandemic happened. So that is that. All right, so what does this mean to you? And I'm going to move my face over here. So we've been keeping track of the multiple listing service starting on March the 5th, and we've been keeping track of numbers in our local MLS week by week. So these numbers are current. So we're doing it from Thursdays to Wednesdays, which is kind of a week in real estate. Starting on March the 5th, and then we're doing week by week all the way up to April the 15th. That's the most current numbers we have right now. And then, of course, next week we'll update it. So as you can see, the amount of coming soon listings, while it fluctuates week to week, I would say that's remained somewhat steady. Active listings, that has dropped off pretty significantly this past week. So we were kind of staying steady, 250, 274, 253, 282, 245, dropped a good chunk down to 185. So we only saw 185 new homes hit the market this past week. Also pretty interesting this past week, the amount of pending listings, properties that went under contract, actually jumped up for the first time in, let's call it, 6 weeks. The amount of closed inventory, you see this spike up at 348. That was the end of March. Which we always see a spike of closed homes towards the end of any month, and temp withdrawal and release listings have remained relatively steady. So here is the interesting thing that we've seen, and we've been talking about this since this kind of started, and I feel like nobody's really believed this, but now I feel like we have the data to actually prove it. As you can see, yes, the number of homes that have gone under contract has dropped pretty much every week except for this past week since COVID-19 started. But as you can see, the amount of pending listings, at no point did it go under the amount of new homes that were hitting the market. So pretty much everything that was hitting the market and then some was being gobbled up by buyers. So at no point did the demand go lower than the supply. So demand being the pending listings, homes that buyers are actually putting under contract, and the amount of listings hitting the market being active, being the supply. And then, we've had a sharp drop off in the amount of active listings. So, we're telling everybody, hey, if you're concerned about the health aspects of this thing, if you just don't feel comfortable, we certainly don't want anybody on the market that doesn't feel comfortable or doesn't feel comfortable enough to put their home on the market. But kind of the interesting opportunity that we're seeing right now is we've got somewhat of a vacuum in inventory. So we had pretty low inventory going into this deal. But now that's been exasperated by the amount of people that have pulled their home off the market and the amount of sellers that were maybe getting ready to hit the market that never just did. So for anybody that's on the market, especially in the lower half of price points, I would argue anything like 400 and below, if you're talking with agents or if you're talking with somebody that has their home on the market, they will tell you that they're seeing a ton of activity on their homes. I mean, once again, the amount of new homes that hit the market dropped by 60 homes this past week, and the amount of pending homes went up. So, it's getting pretty competitive out there with homes that are left on the market, which is kind of an interesting phenomenon. So what does this all mean to you? As a seller, once again, safety first. We've said it since this started. If you do not feel comfortable, if you're scared, if you're nervous, and maybe you don't have to sell, we totally 100% respect that. For our folks that do want to hit the market, we're taking safety as a very big precaution. We're putting Clorox wipes on all of our listings. We're asking buyers not to touch anything. We're asking their agents to wipe things off. We're not doing open houses. We're doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing. And thankfully, in the state of Virginia, real estate's been considered an essential service. Not here to make comment on that way or the other, but it is what it is. Thankfully, we can continue to operate, which is a big relief, not only for the real estate community, but for anybody that needs to buy or sell right now. So safety first. Once again, we've said it before, we have not seen prices drop. We don't expect to see prices drop. And now with kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, where we're seeing the space system that the White House introduced, we're not expecting to see, fire sales and values drop like we saw in 2008. So that's very good news for anybody that owns a home or anybody looking to sell a home. But now more than ever, presentation is critical. There's a lot of folks that are shopping for properties online right now. And what we're seeing with buyers is they're being a lot more picky at the homes that they actually go see. So the way your property shows up online has always been important, but now more than ever is very important, because if your home doesn't show well, that buyer may not just casually go see it, or may not casually add it to the list of homes that they're going to see in an afternoon, because I think everybody's trying to limit the time that they're spending looking at homes and the amount of homes that they're going in and out of. So what does that mean? Staging is very, very critical. We implement a professional stage in all of our listings. But it's very critical that your property shows well, both in pictures and in person. Photos have to be, on point. We tell everybody, professional photos are pretty much the norm now. It still amazes me to see that there's agents out there that are not spending the money to get professional photos. But if you're working with an agent who's not going to meet that bare minimum standard, you're really doing yourself a disservice, in my opinion. Video tours. So these are very, very critical, because a lot of buyers, once again, are shopping online. Pictures are great, but pictures don't tell the whole story. And the second best thing to actually seeing a property in person is to do a walkthrough tour of the property. So we've got a great videographer on staff that has always done these for us, but we're seeing our viewership on these listing video tours go up and up and up. And then digital marketing. So, a lot of the traditional means of advertising, open houses and things of that nature, have been pretty much taken out by COVID. So, we've got what we think is a pretty good digital strategy between Facebook and Instagram. But make sure if you're listing with an agent, they have a medium. They have both the knowledge and the ability to market your property in the digital environment that we're living in today. And saw an interesting stat that Facebook's usage is up like 500% or something crazy like that. So we're fishing where the fish are with the digital strategy. If you don't want to sell now, it's a great time to get ready. So this is the conversation that we're having with folks that say, hey, Chris, we're not comfortable listing until this pandemic gets under control. Totally understand it. What we do expect to see is a wave of inventory that's going to hit the market once this is kind of over and behind us, and once things kind of normalize, which I think we all understand at this point, that's going to be somewhat of a process. But what you've got to understand is, not only are there a bunch of folks sitting at home right now that say, hey, we want to list once it's safe to list, deemed safe to list, but there's also a lot of folks that have already taken their homes off the market, and it's going to be very simple for their agent to put their home back on the market. So we expect a wave of inventory in the fall, which, if you're a seller, all that means is that's more competition for you. So the conversation we're having with folks right now is, hey, let's set up a Zoom call, let's set up a phone call, let's put a game plan together, let's maybe walk you through the things you can be doing to get your home ready now, painting and fixing things and making improvements and stuff like that. But get all that done and behind you while you've got the time, in the mental space now. So that way you can hit the market before anybody else does. It's kind of the same conversation we have with folks over the winter. If everybody says, hey, we want to wait till the spring, and we say, yeah, we know, we get it. But the problem is everybody else waits till the spring, and then everybody kind of seems to hit the market in the spring. And, this is one scenario where you don't want to be hitting the market when everybody else does. Yes, inventory will still be low in a broader sense, but if you can be the one of 2 or 3 homes on the market versus 5 or 6, that's a great advantage to you as the seller, to be able to name your price and be able to basically dictate the negotiation. So something to think about there. For buyers, once again, safety first. If you are not comfortable, we are not here to push you. For folks that do want to continue to buy, it seems like buyers aren't as scared of COVID or going in and out of people's homes, probably because it's not their homes that they're going in and out of. But once again, we're taking safety precautions. We're doing social distancing. We're asking our clients not to touch anything. We're bringing gloves as much as we can. They're kind of hard to come by, but at a minimum, we're providing our showing specialists with Clorox wipes just so they can be safe there. You're going to want to confirm your pre-approval. Pre-approval is still good. So if you've gotten pre-approved in the past, you might want to double check that with the lender before you continue to shop, just because there's been a lot of changes in the last 60 days or 45 days in the mortgage industry with lending requirements tightening up. And we've said this before, but if you're somebody that's working in a job or an industry where you think your job may be on the line or you may not be employed in 60, 90 days, maybe you want to hit the pause button. I don't know that you want to run full steam ahead into buying a home if your employment is not secure. Applies in any scenario, but especially in today's day and age. As we talked about, it's still very, very competitive on the inventory that's left on the market just due to the low inventory. So be prepared to act quickly and get competitive on listings. We're not seeing fire sales. We're not seeing sellers let their properties go. We're not seeing deals of a lifetime. So once again, you're going to have to jump on a property more than likely, and you're going to have to get competitive potentially on listings. I had one listing, it was priced at $265. We had 8 showings on a property on the property this past weekend. So there's still a lot of competition out there if you're out shopping. And that is the update for this week. So I hope that brought you some value. I hope that made sense. If you have any particular questions or concerns that I didn't answer, if you're getting this via email, just respond to the email. If you're seeing it on social, comment below, send me a DM, or if you want to call or email me, that's my contact information right there. Once again, hope this was valuable. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you next week.